Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Faith Family Fulfillment. I am your co-host, Chris.
And I'm Suzanne.
And it's been a little bit.
It has been a minute.
So switching production companies, just kind of put a little bit of a pause to things while we're doing that, making sure that everything goes out and flows from here on out like it's supposed to, roughly on a weekly basis. And we're going to talk about dreaming today, vision and dreaming. So I think this will probably be a more than one episode. Like it's 4 or 5 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
We break it down pretty smoothly. But I'll pray us in and we'll get into it.
All right.
Lord, thank you for this opportunity for us to slow down for a minute and just kind of put some focus on some things that we know we need to be paying attention to. And we hope it brings some insight to those that are listening. Because in everything, when you lead us and guide us and all those things, we always know that you get the glory in all of that. I ask you to be with us in this conversation and keep us in your service. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So you and I are both involved with a coaching platform called the Master's Program. And we were introduced to that, or I was introduced to it first, I guess I would say, by one of our former guests, Noah Elias. He's an amazing coach. That's not what he does as his occupation, but it's definitely what he does as part of his calling and part of his gifting for sure. But he's one of the coaches for the program. And when I went to the first one and I came home, I said, you got to find one of these. The hard part for me is I'm flying across the country to California to do it.
Right.
You're driving down to Atlanta to do it.
Which is still not fun.
It's still not fun.
Just less miles.
But the idea behind the Master's Program is like really deep diving into how does what's the biblical basis of the plan of your life? Is that fair to say? Where it pertains,
and how you're stewarding.
How are you stewarding your family? How you're stewarding your business? How you're stewarding yourself, like your personal being. And then, okay, where biblically can you find the basis for all of that?
Correct. And
I came home in September. I think this was number 5, session 5. I'm pretty sure it's session 5. And they gave us this workbook that talked about dream mastery, and where you're actually digging deep into what it is that's on your heart and in your mind and how you serve your purpose.
Right.
And what made me think about this is, number one, you've caught up to this. Like you now have been through this session.
All right. This is session 4.
Session 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been through this session now. And so it makes sense because I didn't want to jump into it before you'd been through it. So it makes sense for us to kind of go through it together now, rather than me trying to coach and go through it. But what brought it to light for me was a couple of weeks ago, I was able to participate as more than anything, just a guide and a leader in a mastermind of Christian entrepreneurs. And as I heard them present their problem, let me say that, or their
where they're stuck.
Yeah, what's their sticking point? And I'm taking notes, and over and over and over in my notes, I wrote, need clear vision, need clear vision, need clear vision. Just being able to present concisely the vision for your business, your ministry, or whatever it is you're in the process that you're creating through your gifting and your passion. And a lot of them couldn't concisely put that together. And I thought, if they would go through that workbook from the Master's Program of Casting Dreams, it would really help them concisely put together what they're trying to achieve.
And I just want to clarify, casting dreams in plain speak is getting your big picture vision into words.
Right.
Sometimes casting vision sounds a little It's lingo, but it sounds a little weird.
Right. So to give you some insight of where we're headed with this, and I actually brought my cheat notes so we can look at it. There's 5 processes when you're looking through what you're trying to dream your life into being.
And 4 areas, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's dream storming, dream staging, dream linking, dream scheming, and dream teaming.
Mhm.
And what we're going to go through today is the dream storming part of it. So it's basically just like the first dig into the very top layer of what it is. It's your deepest desires and what you're trying to create. Like it's just top level overall vision for that. Once you do it, actually it's 5 areas: marriage, family, career, calling, and desires. And if you break each one of those down, right, the dreams for your marriage, those are that involve your life partner, husband, wife. And each one of those dreams for your marriage, they don't play a supporting role, but you're co-leads. And I think that's where a lot of times people do get stuck because they haven't been able to write it down and voice it with their partner. Number one, to see if their partner's even on board, or do they want to co-sign that dream? Right. And anything that's in that storming part of it that's about your marriage, it's how do you both play a role? It's a combination. There's no lead. It's both of you. And that'll be interesting for us, I think. 26 years in, like, okay, well, how much more are we casting out? How far out do we go?
I'm gonna be here for a minute. I don't know about you. I hope you don't check out.
I hope so too. So, and actually, I've taken the same workbook and I've given it to our oldest two, Avery and Gabrielle, so they can kind of start wrapping their head around it too, because part of this is dreams for your family. So it's about the children, either them individually or collectively, and how are you stewarding the life that you're living as a couple that helps them step into whatever they're trying to dream. Am I making sense in that?
You are. I think it'll make a lot more sense the deeper we go.
Gotcha.
So if you're lost right now, just tune back in.
So
clarify.
Yeah. So dreams for marriage, dreams for family, dreams for career. So when you're thinking about, like I said, marriage, most everybody, because they identify so much with what they do for a living, the idea of creating a dream for what marriage is, their first thing they're going to go to is, okay, well, in my career, I want to do. And that's really not the first thing you do. It's marriage first. What does marriage look like casted out 40, 50 years? What is that vision for that? So their career is something completely separate. In other words, is how do you gain control of the thing that you're paid to do? And what does that look like? What's the ultimate version of that looks like? So that you don't feel at the end of your life that it's been just prison.
And I think too often with career, because we do spend so much of our time every day doing whatever we do as our vocation, you can literally put everything else, all of the other 4 categories can just become sidelines.
Oh, 100%.
And I think where the struggle with that with marriage is your marriage can't be a sideline to your career. I think we've talked about it before. If folks are coming to work because house and home and relationship is in the ditch, they're not terribly productive and they're not going to excel in their career.
And one of the things that I'm trying to focus on with the company is, hey, if we keep the homes and the families healthy, then the business takes care of itself.
Right.
Because of how they'll see things playing out in their life. Because they are more focused. The 4th thing is your calling. So what does that mean? What is, your calling is, what is it that's God's plan for your life? In other words, how are you stewarding his his plan, his overall sovereign plan, and your role in that. I think when Aaron was talking about this, Aaron Weideman was on the podcast with us, and we talked about how do you determine purpose and calling.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, search your heart for what hurts your heart that you know hurts God's heart.
Right.
And then that becomes your calling and your purpose. And then dreams for your desires. So another thing that I'm going through right now through church is it's called Leadership Pipeline. And one of the most impactful things is understanding that you're given passions as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be a substitute word for desires. Because they don't really fit into marriage, family, career, calling, but you're just super, super passionate about those things. Right. You know, for many years, you and I competed. Mm-hmm. We were passionate about that, but it didn't serve our career. Mm-hmm. It's definitely not a calling on my life.
No, because it's like having a second job.
It's or second and third job by the time you add in cooking. But there are things that you're passionate about. And so what are the dreams for that look like? Mm-hmm. You know, it could be something as simple as, hey, how am I going to take care of my body? Mm-hmm. Or, you know, like we're doing 29 and 29 this year together with Avery. Like that's a passion to do hard things together as a family. Mm-hmm. So, but what achievements do you want to celebrate? In other words, what in the words they have in the book is, hey, what turns your crank? Mm-hmm. You know, so just what is your passion? And I've never, until going through this and then backing that same thing up with the Leadership Pipeline coaching, I've never even thought about a God-given passion. Mm-hmm. You know, you hear purpose so much. And
right. You hear purpose and calling and all those things, and they can be very similar, but they're likely not going to have the same steps, activity. What's the word I'm looking for? Intensity.
Right. and if you look at how each of these play out, I mean, if it's, you know, careers, hey, what are you getting compensated for? Mm-hmm. What's the thing you're compensated for? Mm-hmm. With family, it's about the kids and legacy. You know, the marriage is just the two of you. Right. What are you co-headlining? Nobody's taking the lead. What's the co-headline dream look like? Calling is all about God's plan. Like, how are you advancing kingdom? Mm-hmm. So that's where purpose fits in differently. Right. Or passion, for desires. But and the reason they call it dream storming is it's supposed to be just a brainstorm. Mm-hmm. All you're supposed to do is just really just brain dump. It's almost in a way that's maybe even unreasonable to even think about.
That's fair.
Because, you know, the way brainstorming works, like in business, like you just throwing ideas, and you kind of keep massaging the ideas, and then you'll end up with, hey, let's take this action on this thing. Mm-hmm. Same thing with dreamstorming. You're just really putting it out there with no limitations, like not saying, well, I don't have enough time to do this, but what is ideal look like in each one of those areas? Right.
If the answer was yes, kind of across the board, what would you ask? What would you ask for?
Right. In other words, assume no limits.
Right.
Assume no limits. So when you look at it, like each one of them, it's 4 or 5 you want to put down, and the reason you want so many is, and if you do it as a couple, there's going to be some that you can immediately weed out because they just don't line up with you, right? Or they don't line up for something you want to do together. Right. It's got to be things that you can come together on, and that's the reason you do it separately.
Exactly. Like 29 or 29, I'm aboard with that. Climbing Everest for real, you're on your own, bro.
Yeah. Somebody's going to put a gun in my head to make me do that.
You're on your own.
Although that 100-mile race I'm thinking about is getting more and more appealing. Mm-hmm. But you name the dream and then you describe it in the best words that you can. Mm-hmm. Again, it's all about, don't think about the limit. What does perfect look like? Mm-hmm. So what does the ideal marriage look like in 4 or 5 areas, 20, 30, 40 years from now? Same thing with each one of them. So what is dreams for the family? It's 4 or 5 in each area. Then, is it now or later? Mm-hmm. Is it something that is you want to pursue it right this minute? Or is it as you transition into the next season of life? So you think about us right now, we have one child in grad school, who's come back to live under our roof temporarily. I only have one that just started college, and then we have one that's high school next year.
Right.
I'd say that.
Speak it
High school
forward.
next year, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But it also means that we're about 4 years away from another transition of being empty nesters. So there could be things on here that, because of the timing of things, it'll be a later. It'll be a later thing that we can begin to work on once we're empty nesters.
Right.
And then there's, hey, what's right now when the dynamic of the family looks like it does?
Right.
Hey, what's achievable for us right now? You know, something real simple. I just like to give an example because it is kind of
it's very abstract.
It's abstract, right? So, you know, we have talked about date nights, and really for the last 4 or 5 weeks, because of the busyness of life, there's been few of them.
Well, I think there's been one,
2. So, but if, and this would be, hey, ideally it's 52 dates a week, 52 dates a year. So that,
and that's the minimum,
right? Minimum of 52 a year. So if you miss one, hey, that means next week you got to get 2. So it's a way to hold you accountable to what an ideal marriage for you. So if an ideal marriage means we want to date every single week, then you put that down. Is that something you can do now? Yes, that's something we can do now. Okay, well, what are the action steps that we can start to take to make that? The other thing is we want to take a month-long vacation. Well, that's not something that logistically we could do right now. Right. Like the logistics behind that. But if we both agreed, hey, you know what would be nice if every single year we were able to take a true sabbatical together. I don't even know if sabbatical went together, go together, but you know what I mean. Like an extended 2 to 3 week vacation every single year. Right. Where you just unplug from everybody and just spend intentional one-on-one time with each other. Right. Well, right now that won't work. Can that happen later? Yeah, that's the thing that can happen once we're empty nesters. Right. Right. If we can figure
Which kid's going to take the dog?
I was going to say somebody's got to take it. Right. So again, it's not about, don't think about the limitation. That's the reason you don't think about the limitations. Right. Because if you start to think about limitations, it's limiting to you what can happen today.
And I think too, especially with the approach that the master's program takes, if you place limits on what God has the ability to do you really believe that he has the ability to do the things he's already done?
Right. And that's something that's discussed every single session. Like you don't put limits. Right. You know, imagine as big as possible because God imagines larger than that.
Yeah, we can't even comprehend.
We can't even comprehend. So why limit yourself? So that the reason behind it is exactly that. Because some of these are going to be it's all about staging, you know, about when is it going to happen? Is it this stage of life? Is it the next stage of life? Same thing for career. You know, the idea of retirement's not biblical. Yep. Right. So I don't ever see myself in a stage of retirement. I think it's just going to be a different stage of what's front and center in my life and what I'm doing. Right. Be compensated for. Right. That I know that will shift over the course of my life. Okay. Well, what's the dream of what do you want to be compensated for? Okay. Is that something that can happen right now? Is it something that's going to be after you finish what you're doing now? And how long do you want to put it off? We had a conversation with someone yesterday and they knew 5 people that worked in the corporate space. Okay. And all said, hey, once I retire, I'll do this. And there were 5 people that he personally knew that within 6 months of this idea of retirement, to live this ultimate dream of theirs, they were just gone. Yeah. Life expired. Right. So how do you keep that from happening to you? Right. Like focusing on career. Same thing with family, same thing with calling. The calling part is examining, hey, this is hurting my heart. And I know it hurts God's heart. And that's what I want to work. I mean, you and I both feel like this podcast is part of that. Yes. Like keeping families healthy. We know that it's a big deal. It all begins at the family. Our church even says it. It starts around the table. And keeping families healthy in a very broad, holistic sense, not just, relationally healthy, but healthy, like across the board, healthy. Yeah, in all things. And then you do the top 5. So you have one, And the idea of top 5 are things that you can do and start taking action on today.
Right.
Because remember, when you stage them, some are going to be earlier than later. But then even getting more granular, okay, what's the ones that we can start today? What's the marriage thing we can start today? Like we can say 52, like I'm assuming that you want to date me once a week, right? But if ideally 52 dates a year is a dream that we both believe in, then hey, we're going to start doing that every single week. And we're going to make sure that we take off 52, whether it takes us 2 in a week or maybe even 3 in some weeks, but we're going to get 52 dates in. On the family side of things, I think really like, the 29 through 29 that we're doing, we've decided to make that our family misogi to a degree. This hard thing that as we enter the next stage of life, we do collectively as a family. I think the only one that we haven't had a discussion with is Shelby, and she'll get there.
Well, she's 13. Yes. I don't think it's time to have that conversation with her.
Avery's decided to chase a lot of hard things this year. And so you're telling her, hey, as each of you step into your next season of life, we're going to go to do this really, really hard thing together, make this memory together, and recognize that, hey, together collectively as a tribe, we can conquer anything.
Right.
I think it becomes this statement for our family more than anything else. And then career, again, it's what can I take action on today? And the neat thing about this book is there's mapping. Like it's at the end of it all, you begin to really kind of map things out almost as if it's a calendar. Like, and it just makes it really, really, really visual.
Yeah. And I'm going to flip back because, and if anybody, we'll probably show some of these pages later on, but this is super appealing to me in the mapping process because I like to mind map with people because you can talk about things and you can put goals down on paper. But when you start mapping them out, that's when the magic happens, because then you start seeing the things that are connected and related and shared, so that it doesn't seem like this, your BHAG, your Big Hairy Audacious Goal. It doesn't seem like that thing that's just kind of sitting out there. It's actually something that you can actually not just vision out in words, but you can vision out in vision, and you can actually see it coming to fruition. And I think it's important too to really consider those things that you can take that first action step on right away. That is something you talk about when you're working with people. I talk about it when I'm working with individuals. It's not I'm going to start Monday, or I'm going to, when I have time. It's no, what are you going to do right now? What can you do right now? Because you got to get momentum. Right. What can you do right now?
And in the beginning, that it's about, hey, what's the current reality in this one particular thing? What is it right now that what does it look like currently? And then what are your obstacles? Like, what are the things that could get in the way? And then so that you can begin to tick off the obstacles that would keep that dream from becoming a reality. And I think that's when I said people didn't have a clear vision, they come in with all of the roadblocks.
Right. And that's important.
It is important.
That's important.
It is important.
But then, okay, you got all the roadblocks. All right, now let's start taking them apart.
Right.
You need to put yourself at the top of that list, by the way. Yeah. Everyone always needs to put themselves at the top of that list.
Of what?
The obstacles.
Oh yeah, for sure. We get in our own way more than anything. But if you're able to, it's funny because this one, the example they give us is calendars for everyone involved. Like that's an obstacle. One of the things I've recently done is giving everybody in the leadership team access to my calendar. And I kind of made a joke the other day. I was like, hey guys, I appreciate the fact that you want to like book time. Let's have good conversation. That's created a lot of dialogue in the organization. But please realize I need a break to use the bathroom at some point, because they see a white space, they just fill the white space.
Right.
And then they say, why can't Chris ever be on time? Well, I'm like, you didn't give me a space to go.
No buffer.
Right. And so just creating buffer space, which is actually something else the master's program teaches on, is being able to create buffer time for you. So takeaways. Number one, if you'll just look up the master's program, because I'm sure there's somebody that is a facilitator in your area. I would highly recommend it for those that are believers and want to try to figure out how can I get my life to serve God's purpose for me in the best, most efficient way possible and include my family.
Correct.
I think that sums up a lot of it, at least as far as I've been so far.
Yes. And I think there are many and more for men. Just going to put this out there because it just is the way it is. The women's program is not as well, let me back up. It is as developed. It's just not as available correct right now. So if you're a woman looking to become involved in this and you can't find somewhere local, they do have online options for women. I think part of the most fun part of it is actually connecting with people in person, face to face. And my cohort is in Atlanta, so I'm the oddball because everybody else has the ability to see each other in between our quarterly meetings, and I don't, which is, frustrating, but it is what it is. But yeah, it's really important to one, create the community around you that's going to hold you accountable and move you forward. And you can find that in a lot of ways. But if you are someone who's looking for it in the biblical foundation, this is a great program.
Yeah,
and it's an investment in both your time and your finances. So don't go in thinking it's just going to be a cakewalk.
Oh, no. But I mean, the value of coaches,
it's invaluable.
Huge value to the coaches part of it. So yeah, the first takeaway is if you're interested in again, this will be five episodes, 5 quick episodes of how to walk through just the dream mastering part of it. But there's time mastery, there's body mastery, there's lots that they unpack, and they give you the biblical basis as to why to follow the plan they're laying out in front of you.
And if you're not sure what your gifting and calling is, they're going to pull that out of you too.
They will. Yeah, it's a solid coaching program. Yeah, dream mastery. I think it helps to have vision, and then to be able to communicate the vision.
Yes.
You said a while ago the writing down. Habakkuk 2:2 is have the vision, write the vision down so someone can hold you accountable and help it come to fruition. That's the Chris version of it. But basically what it says is, hey, dream big, but write it down so someone can help you achieve. Specifically the Lord.
Yes.
So I hope it's not been too abstract. I think the more we get into it, the more it'll kind of explain itself. But yeah, let's dream.
Yeah, big.
Yeah, dream big.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Father God, thank you for giving us an opportunity to sit down and share our experience through a program that you are fully behind and that you are vetting for each of us who go through it, helping us to develop and deploy the things that are going to really make a bigger impact in the daily lives of those we come in contact with, from our family to those that we don't even know yet. We've not even met them. Help keep us focused and channel our energy in the best possible ways. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys.